The National Investor's motto is, you can get information anywhere, but here you get knowledge. And for well over 40 years now, Chris Temple has imparted that knowledge, an unparalleled, understandable, and useful take on the big picture of the markets and of our world. He has been out in front of what you see on the news every day on many themes. More, Chris has taken this macro knowledge and his unique analytical abilities to uncover unique investment opportunities. Often, he has guided his members to big winners in resources, biotech stocks, and more. His talents and connections often getting him into ground floor opportunities before they are discovered. Without further ado, here is Chris with today's topic.
Welcome once again, Chris Temple here back with you, and today we're going to talk about one of the more intriguing bargains amid a sea of bargains, frankly, in the junior exploration space, and that is a company called Tectonic Metals. As you see here on the screen, Tectonic is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol TECT. On the OTCQB here in the US, it is TETOF. And be sure that you jot down or go to their website later and look at their various social media links because they're well populated on social media. Follow them there. Make sure you kick the tires, go to their website afterwards when we get done because they've got a lot of really cool stuff about their main project, which is called the Flat Project up in the state of Alaska. Now, before I bring on co-founder and CEO Tony Reda, a couple of the usual preliminaries. First of all, as you see here, either Tony and or myself might be making forward-looking statements, so we want you to be aware of that. We call things as we see them as best as we can, when we can, but that doesn't mean everything always turns out exactly as and when you want, so be mindful of that. And secondly, Tectonic, which is one of the newest recommendations in a national investor, got that distinction because of its merits and because of the story you're going to hear today. People don't pay me to be recommended in a newsletter, but after the fact, from time to time, as is the case here with Tectonic, people will pay National Investor Publishing to do various media outreach efforts, copywriting and whatnot, of which this video is a part, so be mindful of that. You're also going to see Tectonic shortly in an update of a precious metals special issue that I dust off from time to time and bring up to date. As you see here, kind of a provocative title and cover for reasons which will be obvious when you read it, because for all of the great profits that people make over the years in precious metals, a lot of people lose a lot of money that do things the wrong way, and we try and help people by dispensing the knowledge of what we feel, I think, are the right ways to do things. Now, in that, with a history lesson, a lot of do's and don'ts and how-tos and so forth, we're going to talk about the different things you look for. If you're interested in the gold space, which you should be, if you're interested in looking for some great under-the-radar junior plays, which could be monstrous performers, and you should be looking for a few of those and have some of those in your portfolio too. There's a checklist of things that you look at. Things like, I sometimes put it, betting on a jockey. In this case, you've got with the management and both co-founders, frankly, and the other board members of Tectonic Metals, you've got a team that is responsible for a lot of past successes. Eira Thomas in the diamond industry back when it kind of burst on the scene at a time when Canada went from no presence in the global diamond market to a major one. We weren't in one of her companies, but we had major success with one of our own some years back. And you look at Tony, who also, with Eira and others, was involved with a company called Kaminak that got bought out. And Kaminak is kind of a next door neighbor almost in the Yukon of where Tectonic has its project here in the state of Alaska. But you've got proven jockeys, and I always like the theme, of course, bet on a jockey. You've got a great location, great jurisdiction. One of the most remarkable stories is how you have an organization that's a big for-profit entity of Alaskan natives that are the second largest investor in Tectonic. So whereas from time to time you have to go through some contortions and a lot of angst if you've got an exploration project to get, whether it's First Nations groups in Canada or Native Americans in the US, on side. They've done more than that. You've got the direct investment by this big Alaskan corporation. You're going to hear about them in just a second. So you've got all of those and other boxes checked. Great management team. Before I bring Tony on, I want to share with you, because when I first saw this video, I said, man, this is one of the best I've ever seen. And as your introduction, before I bring Tony on to add more color to a lot of these aspects, I want to share with you real quick. It's only about 3 minutes, a video that was very professionally and very nicely done that gives you a great overview of Tectonic and its story. So watch this and then we'll get with Tony.
Big deposits leave big footprints, so that's our belief. We look for geological evidence that supports a large mineralizing system. We don't care about 500,000 ounces, we want to find a tier 1 deposit. We had success in the Yukon, a successful mining project, but also good success with the community and the First Nations there. You know, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Doyon. So we want to acknowledge that we're on Doyon land and we're working collaboratively together to ultimately find a mine that benefits shareholders and stakeholders.
So Doyon is an Alaska Native corporation created by Congress when they passed the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act 1971. We are the regional corporation for interior Alaska, so we're a very large region with a fairly small population. Congress told us to select a lot of our own land back, so we have a little over 12 million acres. Congress also told us to be a for-profit business and go out and make money for our shareholders, who are Alaska Native people. We had 9,081 shareholders in 1972. We have about 20,500 shareholders today.
I think regardless of what industry you're in, it's all about the people. We said, hey, we want to go meet with the local communities and villages before we acquire this project. And that really resonated with them. They saw us in the communities doing educational workshops. We also formed production agreements. These agreements cover exploration, production, reclamation, but also environmental considerations and also scholarship contributions, things that would benefit the communities. We have a mandated workforce obligation where we hire locally, things of that nature.
In rural Alaska, it can sustain a regional economy with jobs, with tax revenue, infrastructure, all the things that come from those projects. So you can see that excitement in a community and job-based and training and all those things that people need. It's been a nice relationship for us at Doyon, and we proved that by investing in the company as well.
You know, nothing speaks more loudly than someone saying, here's my hard-earned money, go explore on my property.
So now we're standing on the top of Chicken Mountain on the east side. The scale of this thing is enormous. It's a very, very, very large mineralized system.
The benefit of Chicken Mountain is that it has 55 historical drill holes. We're in an unglaciated terrain, so not only do we have the drill holes, we have 4 kilometer by almost 1 kilometer gold and soil anomaly that's telling us there's a big system. We have a geophysical anomaly that's 3 times that size, and then we have this big placer endowment. So it has something very unique that other projects don't necessarily have.
There's a 20-year gap of exploration in here, which is, to me, it's an unprecedented opportunity to explore using these modern techniques.
So this project has a lot of boxes ticked that tells us we're on a big mineralizing system.
The opportunity to put together a significant gold resource is very promising, and be able to work on something of this caliber. It's kind of a geologist's dream.
What's a really important aspect of the future is to get some resource projects or other cash economy into our rural communities. So it's an alignment of values as much as anything.
To say I am proud of the relationship with Doyon would be an understatement. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And trusting us to work on their land is a huge endorsement, and so we value that significantly.
And here is Tony Reda, who is the co-founder and CEO of Tectonic. Tony, glad you could join me hours before Christmas.
Some might say I might be your Christmas present.
Well, I think we're hopefully going to have one for the folks here who are watching this, whether it's, it's going to be slightly after Christmas, but it'll be a belated Christmas present because, as I said before you came on, with a whole ocean of underpriced and what look like cheap juniors out there, you've checked a lot of boxes already for the kind of a company you want to find, and I think you're really an outlier. So, Tony, I mentioned that one of the things that we like to do is bet on the proven jockey. You've got past experience with Kaminak. Eira Thomas, your co-founder, has had a great experience in the past with shepherding a few of Canada's breakout diamond stories years ago to development and to some success. So how did the two of you get together over flat and decide to go on this new adventure?
Well, post the Kaminak takeout for 520 million, one of the best things that came out of that success story was the relationships we formed, and mine with Eira in particular. She was the CEO, I was vice president, and we banded together with some other fellow Kaminak executives and decided to sort of, I don't know if I'd say turn the junior mining space upside down, but maybe bring a breath of fresh air to something that was getting stale and stagnant. We were in the Yukon, we crossed over to Alaska, same geology, so to speak, but better infrastructure, more producing mines. And what really drew us in was the ability to work with the Alaska Native corporations. And so we partnered up with one specific Native corporation called Doyon Limited. And through this partnership with Doyon, we were able to access over 12 million acres of land. So Doyon is the largest private landowner in the state of Alaska, and they had a conduit of opportunities in front of us. And this one specific project called the Flat Gold Project, it was actually our 5th mineral lease agreement with the Native Corporation. But when I initially reached out to Eira, I said, hey, you got to look at this opportunity, because not only did it have a rich placer mining history, so this is the 3rd largest placer mining jurisdiction of Alaska, and part of the famous Klondike Gold Rush. So that got my sort of ears perked up. But this property was first drilled by Robert Friedland. He's a mining icon, Hall of Famer, mining billionaire, countless successes. And so he was the first one to drill this thing with Fairbanks Gold. And Fairbanks Gold got its notoriety because it discovered and advanced one of Alaska's most prolific gold mines, is the Fort Knox mine. So you have gold endowment from placer gold. So that's in the streams and creeks, part of the Klondike Gold Rush. You had Robert Friedland just kind of, okay, what's this guy up to? Because he's fascinating and interesting, and why not follow a proven mining billionaire? And then you have this Fort Knox analogy and these historical drill holes that every hole hit gold. So that's kind of what really got us chimed in. And then I'd say the kicker was 40 kilometers away is the 5th largest undeveloped gold deposit in the world, about 40 million ounces of gold, co-owned by Barrick and Nova Gold. So anytime you see like one of the largest gold miners in the world, i.e. Barrick, why are they there? What's their interest? What are they exploring? And then you have the 5th largest gold deposit in the world that's undeveloped right now. So that kind of really solidified that, hey, this is an opportunity we need to wrap our arms around. And so we did, and made the acquisition.
Yeah, you're in a great neighborhood there. And, before we go on and get into some of the more important details, and I want to get back to Doyon as well, because as I said in the introduction, you don't see this most of the time. Usually it's a headache with First Nations in Canada or Native American groups, as the case may be in the U.S., as far as not giving permission for this, not cooperating with that. You guys have got a great, engaged, and invested partner. But before we do that, Tony, I want to play another video clip of yours from your website. And this will give folks a little bit more context as far as the location. You mentioned Donlin, which is to the southwest, right, of where you are. And then this whole gold belt that you're right pretty much in the middle of. So folks, watch this real quick. We'll be right back. So one of the things you mentioned earlier, Tony, and I found this extraordinary when you've explained this to me now on a couple of different occasions. Donlin, which, as you said, is the fifth largest reserves of
Undeveloped.
gold,
Yeah.
undeveloped in the world. One of the issues with it is that it is houses what is called refractory material, which, and I'm not going to get deep into the weeds for people who are novices. They don't care about geology. They just care about gold and what is a pathway to a discovery and then to development. We can give them the high level view. But
Yeah.
that's difficult. We see that in the state of Nevada. We see it a couple other places in the western U.S. It takes a couple extra big and extremely expensive steps to mine and then later process that kind of material. On the other hand, what you have found at your first juicy target, which is called Chicken Mountain, and we're going to talk about a couple aspects of that, is that this is not refractory, or it's quite the opposite. It's going to be fairly easy to develop, arguably, one day, won't it?
Yeah. So that was, the reason why Donlin hasn't been put into production yet, even though it has all of its permits except for one, is that it is refractory. And that means the gold is chemically bonded, energy intensive and costly to get the gold out. Now, that project can still make money, but you have to factor in those two critical components. And then on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, when the least costly way to extract the gold from the rock and to process it, and the least energy intensive, is heap leach mining. And so we've demonstrated that our project, Flat or Chicken Mountain, the main target there, is not only free milling, but it has a multitude of paths forward to process the gold. That's to get the gold out of the rock. And more specifically, it is heap leachable. So these types of projects are extremely coveted by major mining companies because they usually involve lower capex, that's the capital cost to build the mine, lower operational costs, lower environmental impact, and you can traditionally process lower grade gold. And one of the reasons why I know this so well is because the last company Eira and I sold to Newmont, the largest gold company in the world, for $520 million, was a heap leach project. And we had three major mining companies bidding on that asset. So this is, if you can find that asset in North America, then you're probably a step ahead of the competition.
Well, and that's important because what it all boils down to, and this is more true than ever. I mentioned again before you came on about special issue I'm putting out on precious metals. That'll have some added details, of course, on Tectonic, folks. But especially now when the landscape has changed in the investment world, people who are interested in the first place in precious metals stories, great drill results and all that kind of stuff is one thing, but more and more when you're trying to get generalist investors to take an interest, it's show me the money or show me how this thing is going to be developed easily. And you've got the biggest projects on this continent essentially are not the gaudy high grade things, but they're economic. And that's at the end of the day, that's what counts because that's what allows companies to show the money. You got everything from the Wharf mine and what could be a clone of that a few miles north of South Dakota. You've got all of the different projects in Nevada, most of which are also open pit mines and heap leachable. You don't need high grades, but you need stuff that can break up easily, and also where you've got some ability to recover the lion's share of the gold. And you just came out with some news recently, Tony, on the metallurgy that was another big box that was checked, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was probably the most geologically, or just in general, the most significant news release our company has published. And it clearly validated that heap leaching is viable on our project. And it changes the scope from an economic perspective, but also from even a how to explore perspective. And it was really the reassurance we needed to charge full steam ahead on this asset.
That's cool. Now, when we talk about the overall asset, where you've been doing most of your drilling and so forth is this area called Chicken Mountain, which we'll show again here. But you've got several different targets over your
Yeah.
entire land package, don't you?
Yeah, no, we have we've identified 6 targets, and the word target doesn't do it justice. This is the potential for 6 deposits.
Yeah.
And again, if you get exposure to the junior mining space or maybe the small cap world out there, everyone's like a promoter, but I want to peel this back a bit and give some context because I'm not one of those. And when I say potential deposit, I don't say that lightly. So the flat project is 99,000 acres in size, and these 6 intrusion or deposit targets, they mimic the main Chicken Mountain. So that's a drill confirmed. But what we have from this Chicken Mountain target is that there is a geophysical, so there's an anomaly that's been confirmed, and we see that anomaly repeat itself. And that's in geophysics, and then also in golden soil samples, then also in placer gold. Each one of these targets is shedding gold or has shed gold over 50 years or millions of years, I should say, in the placer gold endowment. So you see these streams and you see the target itself. It's usually it's not, even though it's called Chicken Mountain, it's not a mountain, but these are like hills or plateaus. And then the streams and creeks around those plateaus, which are the source for that gold in the streams or creeks, is carrying gold. So the gold didn't come out of the sky. It clearly came from the target, and actually our asset, the Flat Gold Project, has actually been studied in academia, in the geological world, because it's one of the best examples of placer gold to source relationships in the entire world. It's uncanny. It's continues to awe me when I see, even to this day, some of our guys, like you see placer gold or you see a stream or creek, let me go see if there's gold in there. And there is. So that gold over millions of years has eroded from those plateaus. And it's telling us, well, there's a deposit there. It just needs to be drilled and uncovered.
Well, that's most always true where you find placer gold. I think what's remarkable about where you're at, Tony, is that you don't have these big mountains where you can see, telltale signs that in ages past you had a lot of huge shearing activity and things moving and whatnot. It sounds to me as though the placer gold and the streams and so forth near these plateaus, not huge mountains, suggest that this entire area had pretty much disseminated gold. And it's kind of what you're showing at Chicken Mountain.
Exactly. And going back to Eira and I getting drawn into this project, you have this big refractory deposit called Donlin that's 40 kilometers away. And then our project was labeled as a refractory deposit, even though there was no testing to validate that. And when I first looked at this, I said actually to my geologist, I said, well, there's free gold in the streams or creeks. So that, in essence, tells us that the gold's not refractory because Mother Nature has liberated it naturally. And if you look at Donlin, they don't have the big placer endowment that we have. But if you look at the Fort Knox mine, which is a heap leach mine, again, advanced by Robert Freeland, Fairbanks Gold, Fairbanks Placer Gold District is one of the largest districts in Alaska for placer gold. So again, the stars started, or the dots started connecting, and we're like, okay, this definitely looks to be free milling, and again, very prolific gold endowment as well.
Yeah. Now, even before you got to that recent step of doing that metallurgy work to show that you can get high recovery rates, you've done what a lot of juniors haven't done. And I want you to explain this a little bit because, folks, as we've discussed, there's a lot of companies out there just kind of treading water. The junior explorers haven't gotten a whole lot of love for the most part, even with the gold price going up. That's going to change one of these days. But most of them have not had the ability to raise money and do any meaningful amount of work. You guys have. And you've been using this downtime really when people aren't paying attention to build the various components of this story. So give us a little bit of color on that and why you decided to not just sit back and wait for better times, but why you really want to strike and get this work done, even though the share price has not done a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah, I would start off by saying, we're an exploration company. And if you're, in essence, if you're a junior mining company, and there's about 2,000 of us out there, our job is quite simple. Find the next mine. Well, you're not going to find it sitting behind your desk. You're not going to find it by sitting on your hands. The way gold is found is by drilling it. So you have to drill to find gold. It's plain. There's no arm waving there. That's just pure science. If you're not drilling, you're not finding anything. So our approach, if you wait for a better day, sometimes, yes, there's a good reason to do so. But what these mining markets have taught us, if you wait for a good day, you might be waiting 10, 12 years. Like, it hasn't been, there's blips of really awesomeness out there and some companies doing some great work, or some windows open up throughout the past few years where things start to turn. But you really have to go out there and create the opportunity. And so our approach has been, take the dilution. It's a necessary evil. It's like gas in the car. If you got a Ferrari, you can sit in it and enjoy it, but at some point you want to drive that baby, and you need gas to do that. And so, yes, there's the electric movement, but we'll park that for a moment. The point is, you get the analogy that we have chosen to, put gas in the car and drive. Another analogy I like to use is that you can't score sitting in the stands. So you got to get on the field, put on the pads, lace up the boots, and score the touchdown. But you got to do that by getting on the field. And getting on the field in our industry means drilling. The other thing that I maybe add to it is that, finding gold's important. Finding economic gold is better. That's the holy grail. So the holy grail is finding economic gold that can be permitted. And so that's where you need your First Nations or your Native relationships in the community to be on side. And so our actions are reflective of finding gold that's economic and permittable. So
you have done a lot to, as we've been pointing out, check a lot of the boxes that would typically be viewed as a quote risk area, whether it's with your First Nations thing. Go back and talk a little bit about now Doyon is the second largest shareholder, right?
yes.
Presently of Tectonic.
Yes, and that I think it's important to emphasize. They were the first, but got ousted by Crescat, a large resource fund. But secondly, they didn't get the shares vis-a-vis a project agreement of some sort. They purchased their shares. So they actually cut a check and said, we want to buy shares into your company because we believe in your company and we believe in the asset, and we want to support this with our own hard-earned money.
But you can't ask for better than that. Now, Crescat, you mentioned they're a 20+% shareholder, is it, Tony?
Yes, they are, correct.
And they are, one and the same, some of the smarter geological minded people and with some great credentials as far as their own experience, so they know what they're looking for, besides being an investment house that looks to seed projects that they think are worthwhile. What did they like most? I guess it's kind of a loaded question, Tony, but what was the Quentin and the crew, what did they like most about this whole project?
I think that their initial investment into Tectonic was pre-flat, so pre the flat project.
Okay.
And that was predicated on the team and another asset that we still have and we still love. It's near the Pogo mine in Alaska. But what took them from 10% owner in our company to 22%, so the largest shareholder, was this asset called the Flat Gold Project. And they are big fans of this sort of deposit style. It's called the reduced intrusion related gold system. They're big fans of Fort Knox. And they were also extremely impressed with the gold endowment from the placer gold, from the 80 drill holes that were there historically, and also the geochemical or the anomalies at surface. So from a geological perspective, they like scale, they like something that can be economic, and they also like teams that can execute and make that a reality. So hence why they've moved up to the largest shareholder in our company.
Well, and you guys put all of those things together under Tectonic, that's for sure. So looking forward, as we wind down, Tony, you've got some exploration and drilling results from the recent past coming out shortly?
Yeah, so we executed our program and we expect to have assay results out to the market in January, testing some new areas of Chicken Mountain that have never been drilled before. Going back, sticking with this placer gold endowment in the Streamser Creek, the most prolific placer producing creek on our property, it's called Flat Creek, and it's produced 650,000 ounces of recorded placer gold production. And the source for that is this target called Alpha Bull. Never been drill tested in the history of this project for the last 50 plus years. No one's ever touched this part of the property. We're the first ones to test it, and does the most prolific gold creek on our property, and possibly also one of the top 5 in Alaska, does that mean the bedrock gold or the source of the gold is richer, bigger, greater? We'll have to stay tuned for that answer. But we tested it, and we're eagerly awaiting those results, which we anticipate in January.
Nice. And then looking a little farther ahead, what are your plans for 2025 as far as how you're going to continue pushing this project forward?
Well, yeah, great question. So we're already putting some thought around that. Actually, a lot of thought, and a few different initiatives have already been launched. 2025 is going to be predicated on the results from the 2024 program. So it's a bit premature to fully say, but what we anticipate is that, the drilled strike to date is 1.8 kilometers, and that's significant, very significant. And so we're starting to look at those 1.8 kilometers from, is there a compliant mineral resource estimate there? If not, what kind of drill spacing is required to get that? And then we're going to take that data and insert it into a preliminary and internal economic study, and what the economics might look around this asset. And then that plus the results from 2024, the drill results that is, will inform how we move forward next year.
Cool. Well, a lot of us expect that notwithstanding a little bit of a pullback we have as 2024 has ended, there's all kinds of reasons here in the U.S., 36 trillion of them and counting, as far as the national debt, why gold is going to continue doing what it's done since it was had its price removed from being a fixed asset back over 50 years ago, and that is just going to keep trending higher. And inevitably, I think as other stories start to fall, investors are going to rediscover the gold space, and you guys are setting yourselves up to be near the top of the list, I think, of some of the more promising. Still speculative. There's still a lot of work to be done, but you've, as we've covered, already checked so many of the boxes that are worries elsewhere that I sure like hanging my hat on this particular one. So, Tony, I appreciate the time. And folks, as a reminder, and here's the information on the screen again, make sure that you visit Tectonic's website, follow them on social media. They're one of the more active companies, I think, of a lot of them on social media. And follow yours truly as well. Make sure that you're on our mailing list, because from time to time when there is news on Tectonic, we're going to pass that along to folks as well. So, Tony, I appreciate the time, and I'm looking forward in the not too distant future to catch up again and update folks further.
Thank you. I look forward to that as well. Thank you for the opportunity.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.